Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers here in Korea and around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Thursday, April 24th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom and you're tuned into our ongoing coverage of the Sewol-ho ferry disaster. Now, it's been more than a week since Korea's worst maritime disaster in recent history. The number of passengers confirmed dead rose slightly overnight, but the number of people unaccounted for still stands at over 140. We are going to connect live to our Hwang Sung-hee, who's been reporting from the nearest port from the accident site. Sung-hee, more bodies were retrieved overnight, but survivors are extremely unlikely to be found now.
That's right, Mark. We are now into our 9th day of search and rescue operations, but still not a single survivor has been found since the ferry capsized. The official death toll rose overnight to 159. Now, most of the bodies retrieved yesterday and overnight are high school students, and families gathered here, camping out here at the Paengmok-hang Harbor, are holding on to a very, very thin shred of hope now. They are growing very restless as time passes. More and more families have been filling the harbor lately with the rise in the death toll as they come to witness with their own eyes their child's body. Now, even in this early hours of the morning, I saw many people, many parents gathered around the list that describes the retrieved bodies, trying to match the descriptions with their loved ones. Mark?
Yes, it's very sad to see that the hope that was there is now turned into waiting for the news they'd feared, really, since the ferry sank. How is the search and rescue operation progressing? Are divers getting further into the vessel?
Mark, the rescue team will begin their attempts to enter the center area of the 4th floor cabins in just about an hour's time. Now, this is where the Danwon High School students were staying in, and it's also where most of the missing passengers are believed to be in. Like you said, around 140 people still remain missing inside the sunken ferry, and most of them are believed to be high school students. Today's rescue operations will include the largest number of rescue personnel yet. Now, the rescue teams have been focusing their search on the 3rd and 4th floors of the vessel, and so far they said they did not find any air pockets. Now, this is very unfortunate because it greatly reduces the chances of finding survivors in the sunken ship. It's been more than a week since the tragedy, and messages of support for those still missing in the sunken ship were sent to Paengmok-hang Harbor from across the nation. The messages said, "We love you all," and that miracles will happen. This has been Hwang Sung-hee reporting from Paengmok-hang Harbor.
The parents of the missing are now into the 9th day of waiting for any news of their sons and daughters who are on board the ill-fated ferry. The families have been huddled in a gymnasium near the accident site in Jindo, where our Hwang Jie joins us live. Jie.
Mark, it's relatively calm here at the moment, with families waking up and hoping that today will finally be the day that they will get to hear some news about their loved ones. You can feel that sadness is in the air and how hard it is for families to cope with the passing hours. Doctors at the gymnasium say that families are in the state of shock and deep mourning, which are resulting in headaches and exhaustion. They add that while now is an unbearable time for the families, mentally the symptoms of depression could recur after 2 or 3 months. There are now noticeably fewer families here at the Jindo Gymnasium as more bodies are being discovered and identified. The families are leaving to tend to their loved ones at Paengmok-hang Harbor and to the hospital. The others left here are going back and forth from the gymnasium to the harbor about 2 times a day. A father that I talked to yesterday said that he now realizes that his daughter is gone and that he just hopes that he could find her body so that she can rest in peace. Mark?
Yes, and we must remember that 143 people are still unaccounted for 8 days after this tragedy, and of course our thoughts are with their families there. We hear the government is deploying more resources for the comfort of the families that remain there.
Yes, a representative of the families said yesterday that the bodies will be transferred from the Paengmok-hang Harbor to the hospital by 4 military helicopters. He added that they will quicken the process of bodies being sent back home. The families can also ride together. While the whole country is hopefully waiting for news of survivors along with the families here, hundreds of volunteer workers came to the Jindo Gymnasium to support the families and to encourage them desperately waiting for their missing ones to stay strong. This has been Hwang Sung-hee reporting live from the Jindo Gymnasium.
As you could see in the video there, thousands of people from around the country have gone to the rescue site to volunteer their time over the past week or so. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports from Jindo.
At times of great loss, people come together. Korea is a nation in despair, and the pain felt among victims' families is unimaginable. To help them in the most difficult time, hundreds of firms and thousands of volunteers have come down to the Jindo area to do what they can.
We started providing meals on April 16th. We have around 100 volunteers and feed around 700 people a day.
We came here on the day of the incident. We make sure all the supplies, like instant noodles, bread and other things, don't run out of stock. We are serving approximately 2,000 to 3,000 people per day.
The services are free of charge.
We not only provide medical service to victims' families, but also to volunteers, the press, and civilian divers, amongst others.
Volunteers are signing up daily all around the country. Nearly 8,000 people volunteered since the tragic incident on April 16th to show their support and help the victim's family in their time of need. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News, Jindo.
Now, police and prosecutors are continuing their investigation into the crew members and the captain who face a number of very serious charges. For more details, we are joined by Connie Kim in our news centre. Connie.
Morning, Mark. Most of the 11 crew members that have been taken into custody could be charged with negligent homicide, according to the joint investigative body by the prosecution and the police. Now, there were 15 crew members in total, all rescued, and 7 of them got on the very first rescue boat sent by the Coast Guard. Investigators believe the crew members had room to at least try to save the passengers. During the investigation process, some of the crew have reportedly shown signs of regret, admitting to their mistakes and saying they should have taken rescue measures. And the owner of this Haewodo ferry, the Cheongjin Marine Company, is also under fire as well. Prosecutors seem to think the fundamental reason for the sinking lies with the ferry operator. A joint investigation team on Wednesday raided several offices and the homes of the Cheongjin Marine Company owner, Yoo Byung-un, and his company headquarters. Yu's 2 sons were the biggest shareholders of the ferry's operating company, and the whole family has now been banned from traveling out of the country since Sunday.
Staying with the investigation into the ferry sinking, only a few weeks ago, the crew of the Sewol-ho ferry reported the ship's steering unit was malfunctioning. What do we know there?
Well, more than 2 weeks ago, crew members of the Cheongjin Marine Company submitted a repair request form saying that the steering gear of the now sunken ferry was sending no voltage warnings. The steering gear is like the handle of a car, critical in sailing the vessel. Experts say that if this steering gear doesn't work, operation needs to stop because of a high possibility of an accident. However, the ferry operator took no action on this issue. Korean broadcaster YTN reported Wednesday that a ship repair company that had worked on this Haewodo ferry before said it had not repaired the steering gear any time recently, nor had it received any repair requests. It appears to have continued to allow the ferry to operate for more than 2 weeks, leading up to the accident last week. Cheongjin Marine Company has not yet responded to the press about the malfunction, but did mention its possibility when crew members were arrested yesterday. Now investigations are focusing on the steering gear and looking into whether the company conducted regular checkups. Well, that's it from me, Mark, but I'll keep you updated throughout the day.
Thank you, Connie. Now, a group memorial hall has been set up in Ansan, the city most touched by this awful disaster. Thousands of citizens visited the site to say their goodbyes on Wednesday. Our Shin Se-min joins us live from the memorial hall. Se-min.
Yes, Mark. On Wednesday, a total of 13,000 mourners have visited here at Ansan Olympic Memorial Hall to pay tribute to those who have deceased. Lines of people have reached all the way to the entrance of the Memorial Hall all day long. Mourners lined up in silence and said their last goodbyes, offering white flowers. Even at this early hour, you can see people coming in groups of 2 and 3, writing letters and memos on post-it notes that dot the doors and walls outside the Memorial Hall. The local government here has also set up a message service so that those who cannot come in person can send text messages of condolences. The total number of messages received cannot be tallied at this point, as the system was overloaded with an outpouring of grief. But it's thought more than 20,000 text messages were sent from all over the country. Also, Prime Minister Chung Won has directed the Ministry of Security and Public Administration to install group memorial halls all over the country so that people nationwide can pay their respect to the victims.
And Semin, as we reported earlier, more bodies unfortunately are being retrieved from the shores of Jindo and many are being sent to Ansan. How is the city holding up and how is it managing the situation?
Yes, the local hospitals and funeral halls is experiencing a morbid saturation point as more bodies continue to arrive here. Local hospitals and funeral halls have been struggling to cope with the number of victims who are being sent here. Unfortunately, this has been leaving many families on waiting list for empty funeral hall. Officials here in the city are working to expand facilities while securing funeral halls in the nearby cities like Siheung and Anyang. Meanwhile, 12 more victims are expected to be released from Ansan soon. This has been Shin Se-min reporting live from Ansan Olympic Memorial Hall.
Now, in the wake of the ferry disaster, the government, which has come in for criticism for its handling of the incident, is already taking steps to raise safety awareness and increase related regulations. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
The Sewol-ho ferry tragedy has forced the government to take a look at the level of safety awareness and preparedness in the nation. To make sure such accidents are prevented in the future, the government said Wednesday that it plans to carry out intensive safety checks on all major industrial and transportation facilities in the nation. The inspections were ordered by President Park Geun-hye and Prime Minister Chung Hong-won. Improper safety inspections have been blamed as one of the reasons for the disaster. Some of the facilities that will be subject to checks include industrial complexes, trains, ports, tunnels, and bridges, as well as ships, like the Sewol-ho ferry. The nationwide inspection is set to begin on May 9th, but the government will first ask the government and civilian operators of such facilities to carry out voluntary safety checks for 2 weeks. Meanwhile, a new bill called the Student Safety Act was passed by a subcommittee within the National Assembly on Wednesday. It would require all schools to conduct a safety education process before going on school trips. In addition, the Culture Ministry also hopes to make Student Safety Day a national holiday. They plan to speak with family members of 5 students who were killed last summer while attending a Marine Corps camp for help organizing it. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
North Korea has sent a message of condolence to the victims of the Sewol-ho ferry disaster. South Korea's Unification Ministry says the message was sent by the North Korean Red Cross and was delivered on Wednesday through the Inter-Korean channel at the truce village of Panmunjom. In it, Pyongyang expressed its deep sorrow for the passengers who lost their lives and those still missing. The last time the North sent such a message was back in 2003, when an arson attack on a subway train in Daegu killed nearly 200 people. The South Korean government has warned that North Korea is ready to conduct another nuclear test. With US President Barack Obama on his Asia tour, somebody Pyongyang wants to make a statement while he's in the region. Kim Sung-hee reports.
South Korea's defense ministry says North Korea is ready to conduct a nuclear test at any time. In a press briefing Wednesday, a Ministry of National Defense official said the North Punggye nuclear test site appears to be on standby with an open ticket in hand. This would run counter to what a recent report by the U.S.-based North Korea analysis site 38 North suggests. It says it's unlikely that the regime will carry out a fourth nuclear test while U.S. President Barack Obama is visiting the region over the next week. The report cited analysis of satellite imagery, which indicates the recent activities at the nuclear site differ from those leading up to past tests. But a Korean official said the data on the 38 North website is different from what the government has. The U.S. says it is keeping close watch on movements in the north amid speculation that it may carry out a fourth nuclear test. Speaking to reporters on Air Force One, White House spokesman Jay Carney said the U.S. is monitoring movements at the North Punggye nuclear test site. The U.S. State Department echoed Carney's sentiment and urged North Korea to exercise restraint.
We continue to urge North Korea to refrain from actions that threaten regional peace and security and to comply with its international obligations and commitments.
Kim Sang-hyun, Arirang News.
North Korea normally makes up the bulk of the conversation when the presidents of South Korea and China get together. But it was the Sewol-ho ferry disaster that dominated telephone talks Wednesday between Presidents Park Geun-hye and Xi Jinping. Kim Min-ji reports.
In a phone conversation Wednesday, President Park Geun-hye thanked Chinese leader Xi Jinping for his words of comfort to the victims of the ill-fated Sewol-ho ferry disaster and expressed sadness as some Chinese passengers were still among the missing. Xi said he was also deeply saddened by the fact that the majority of the missing and deceased were young students. He added that his thoughts were with the victims and their families. The Chinese president also said that Beijing will provide search and rescue assistance to Seoul. The two leaders also talked about North Korea. President Park urged her Chinese counterpart to dissuade Pyongyang from carrying out a fourth nuclear test, saying it would change the security paradigm in Northeast Asia. Park said another nuclear test could start an arms race and create a nuclear domino effect in the region. North Korea carried out nuclear tests in 2006, 2009, and 2013. President Park added that a fourth test could also hamper efforts to resume the stalled multinational talks aimed at denuclearizing North Korea. She reassured Park that both nations share the same interest of a denuclearized North Korea. He said that Beijing would do its best to help maintain peace and stability on the Korean peninsula. The Chinese leader added that he would encourage dialogue between the related parties and also express support for the trust-building process initiated by Park and for a peaceful reunification of the two Koreas. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
The head of South Korea's railway operator has reportedly arrived in Pyongyang to attend an international rail conference. Chae Yeon-hae, the CEO of the Korea Railroad Corporation, is scheduled to take part in the annual meeting of the Organization for Cooperation Between Railways on Thursday and will last for the next 4 days. North Korean state media said Tuesday that a delegation had arrived in Pyongyang but didn't mention Chae's name. The conference, which involves 27 member states, is aimed at promoting international cooperation between railway operators. Time now for a look through our international headlines. For that, we connect live to our Eunice Kim standing by at the News Center. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning, Mark. We'll begin with an update on Ukraine. Russia has said it will respond if its interests in Ukraine are attacked directly. Russia Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov drew a parallel with the 2008 Georgian war during an interview with Russia today, adding that he saw no other way but to respond. And in a separate statement, the Russian Foreign Ministry called on Ukraine again to withdraw its military forces in the east of the country. This as pro-Russian forces are hunkered down in at least 12 towns in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, installing their own officials in a déjà vu to events leading to the Crimean referendum earlier this year. Australian officials are looking at an object of interest related to their ongoing search for a missing Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 without calling it a real lead. The object was picked up on the coast of Western Australia and is described as appearing to be sheet metal with rivets on one side. The search is nearing its 50th day, and the high-tech underwater drone, the Bluefin 21, has scanned some 80% of its assigned territory. French authorities have identified 3 suspected North Korean agents, 2 of whom were working in UN organizations and have issued personal sanctions against them. Japan's Mainichi Shimbun cited a French finance ministry report that said 2 of the agents, father and son, were working at UNESCO and the World Food Program when they were discovered. The third was an international relations director at a North Korean bank. The personal sanctions against them would freeze their assets and ban any bank transfers. And business activity in the Eurozone is poised for growth in the second quarter, with Germany leading the expansion, recording a near 3-year high in April. Germany's Purchasing Managers Composite Index, also known as PMI, rose to 56.3 from 54.3 in March on the back of improvement in both manufacturing and services sectors. But further signs of falling inflation is a concern for the currency bloc.
I'm Lee Ji-hyun with a weather update for Jindo and around the country. The conditions over in Jindo looks to be similar to yesterday. Waves will be mild, with reaching no higher than 1 meter. And as for the tides go, this is when the weakest tidal currents occur today. One is coming up at 10:17, then 4:38 p.m. will be the next, and 9:52 this night. The speed of flow should decrease 1 hour before and 1 hour after these indicated times. And Jindo can expect moderate conditions under sunny skies, with temperatures hiking up to 24 later in the afternoon. And as for the rest of the country, we'll continue to have early summer-like conditions under lots of sunshine. So let's take a closer look at those numbers. The morning low here in the capital starts at 11, then will rise to 26, while highs in Daegu will soar to 28, and Gwangju and Busan should top out at 27 and 22 later in the afternoon. Now for other regions, it looks like down on Jeju will reach to 21, and Daejeon will peak at 27. Well, that's all for now, but I'll be back with more updates after 10.
Those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Korea Today is coming up in half an hour's time, and our news team will be continuing with our comprehensive coverage of the Sewol-ho ferry disaster and the ongoing search and rescue efforts throughout the day. Goodbye.